here, really an update from myself. One of the things that I know that I fall short in is that I actually don't say thank you enough. And I first wanted to start with that. When I'm out in the community and talking to others, I can't tell you how often someone approaches me and thanks me for the service that you're providing and the difference that it's made in their family and their environment. Thank you for caring for them in that way. I know that there are tough things that we require, tough things to be prepared, tough things to respond. But we are making a difference in our community and will continue to do so. At the end of the day, we know here in the administration that if it wasn't for our citizens and if it wasn't for you responding, we would not be here. That is our purpose and our point. So again, thank you. I first wanted to hit on really being a value-driven organization. You'll notice in my the chief updates that I talk a lot about the mission and values, and there's a reason for that, and that's because we have no way to create a million rules that can be memorized and done. We have to have parameters around certain things, but at the end of the day, if we live by our values, which are really about how we act and treat others, we're going to meet the vast majority of any rules that we have. And so I wanted to hit on a few issues associated with values. One is, first and foremost, and I've said this in my updates, is at the end of the day, what does Central Pierce want to be, and what do you want to be? Those are such important questions, because culturally, corporately, what is Central Pierce going to be is really what we intentionally strive to be. I don't know about you, but I am certainly not a perfect human being, and I have this ideal of the person I would like to be, and it takes intention through difficult circumstances, through emotion, frustration, all the feelings and different circumstances that you have. It takes a focused intention for me to be that person that I desire to be. I'm not that person naturally. I wish I was. It would be a lot easier then, but I'm not. So I have to choose. And that really is what our values as a corporation really come down to. What are you going to choose to be, along with what is this organization going to be? Because you will set the direction. You influence the people around you, maybe not by your words, but definitely by your actions. And at its end state, if you accumulated all those people together, that's what we call culture. And if we focus upon a culture that is right, true, that we've agreed to, and then we intentionally say, that's the person that I want to be for Central Pierce and its citizens and its employees. If we all wrap our heads around that, guess what? That's what we're going to become. If we don't do that, then we are going to be an organization of impulse, an organization of how I feel today, an organization of, all that matters is me, right? And that is a disaster waiting to happen. So we have to focus on these values. It's important. I want to challenge each of the company officers, or if you're out of class working as a company officer, you should be pulling out these values and just talking about them. And don't tell people about them, talk with them about them, and ask them, hey, what does it mean to have compassion and selflessness? What does that mean for us today? Because it has to be an action. Our values are what's going on inside, but in its end state, it creates behavior and an action. And so I challenge you, pick up a value each shift and just say, okay, so today we're going to talk about trustworthiness. What does that mean to you? We're going to talk about compassion and selflessness, right? How do we demonstrate that today? You could simply walk through the list. Demonstrating empathy. That's actually having the feeling that someone else has. Understanding their plot in life is empathy, right? Active listening. Instead of just talking, actually putting that on the mouth, which isn't a quality that I have a lot of, right? But there's an old saying, God gave you one mouth, two ears, you ought to use them that way. Truly listening to understand that person, placing duty before self. Wow. That means that I actually self-sacrifice. I lay my opinions at times even, because duty calls me to a higher standard. Our values do. And then commit to humanity and dignity. What kind of conversations can we have around those? And again, I think we've got to talk about it every shift. How do we be these things on a daily basis so that we are the individuals that we want to be? And then because you're being that person, then we culturally become those things. And I can't do it. I can talk about it. I can appeal to you. I can have my own challenges with them. I mean, when I look at that concept of demonstrating empathy, ever get angry with someone? Yeah, I mainly notice it sadly with my wife, right? And I struggle having empathy and understanding her when I reach that point of anger, right? So, but when I'm doing that, I'm not demonstrating the person I want to be, nor the husband I want to be. We have to remind ourselves of these things. If they're not natural, which there may be some who are, I'm just not one of those people, I have to work on this stuff. I ask for you to come along with me. Let's work on them together. I'm not a perfect man. I'm not going to sit and go, hey, where's your empathy? And I don't want you to do that to me, but let's encourage one another. Let's talk about these things. Let's be reminded of them, because that's going to be the difference in our culture. So thank you. I always want to go through a value. It's so important for us longer term. I'm going to hit a couple of, I think, important issues that are coming to the fire district now. The first is our 2020 budget process, where we had our first meeting last night going through our division budgets for the Board of Commissioners. We've been through a process of collecting budget requests. We've vetted that through the leadership team, prioritized them, and have settled on what we're going to bring forward to the Board of Commissioners. It's a good set. I think there are incredible improvements involved with the budget process. I'm very proud to say and pleased that at the end of the day, Central Pierce is in a strong financial position. We're not at a place where we are concerned that dramatic changes are going to have to occur. Passing the lid lift was very important for us. That's part of our financial strategy. We have to go out with a lid lift every 6 years, EMS, FBC every 6 years on 3-year rotations. That is just part of how we have to finance the organization. We had a failure in November, had a very strong showing, I think, in April because of the work of all of you. That's just fire district finance, but we're stable. We are in a solid position. Probably better than we have since pre-recession. I'm very pleased with that. We have work to do, though, definitely. We also have, not only with the lid lift, we also have GEMT. So we've been doing a lot of work to understand GEMT, to be able to project GEMT into an ongoing budget status. And then also looking at that concern that in October, which is now, that potentially half of it was going to go away. We've researched that. That is only applicable to hospital-based ambulance systems. I have no idea why. Most of GEMT, I have no idea why. One of the crazy parts is I actually had to ask the Board of Commissioners to front $2.5 million to Medicaid so that we could get $8 million back. I could not tell them why, have no idea the reason why, but at the end of the day, we got $8 million back, right? So we're in a great place there. It's affording some opportunities for us. We created a committee of commissioners of labor and the Office of the Fire Chief to look at how do we want to approach GEMT in particular with the one-time money that we have, because we've been careful to not extend the fire district because what we thought was a vulnerability with GEMT. And so that committee has come together, and there was a couple things that I saw needed to be addressed from a capital perspective. One was, how do we close out the bond project? We've been working down the bond, hitting projects. We can do one more. Which one should we do? The second was we still have some fleet needs. From my perspective, we need 2 trucks and 3 engines to get our fleet into a place that is very stable over the next 7 to 10 years. And we need that kind of stability. The fleet itself was the worst, actually I'd call it the second worst thing that we had when I first arrived. I'd never seen a fleet in the condition that our fleet was in. So we've done a major step with the 8 engines and all the medic units we've been purchasing. This purchase, if approved by the board, would actually stabilize that, I think, on a strategic basis. So the committee met, we went through the funding, how much one-time monies we have. The real question was which station? Do we want to focus on Station 73 or Station 61? The recommendation moving forward is to actually build Station 73 and complete the analysis at Station 61. One of the things that came out of this was that there was a lot of controversy about the new C Street property at Station 61. And we just haven't taken the time to study that question. There's some, I think, relevant things that have been brought up from the crews at 61 about what's really going on with the surface water. The county has invested an incredible amount to remove a lot of the surface water problems. So is there still that surface water problem there? So there's just stuff that we need to investigate, which is going to take time. So the committee is recommending to the Board of Commissioners, build 7-3, study and prepare for 6-1 to get a decision about its future, where we place it. Second item that we talked about was these vehicles. There was total consensus and support by that group to deliver that recommendation of purchase 2 trucks, buy 3 more engines. That'll be going to the Board of Commissioners at our next meeting on Monday. The committee is making simply a recommendation. The Board of Commissioners have to approve the recommendation and then approve through resolution the appropriation of the funding to allow us to move forward with those 2 issues. The last thing on GEMT that I think is very powerful is we not only have this one-time funding that we're purchasing one-time items with, we also are in a place where we can invest long-term funding. And so we are approaching a scoping methodology to look at an EMS assessment to really from the top down, bottom down, or bottom up, look at our EMS system, whether it be from the impact of nursing homes and care facilities or our other urgent cares utilizing us for interfacility transports, how that's working, how we could change that, to our low acuity continual increase in calls, to how are we doing with QA/QI, our relationship with the medical community as a whole, our CARES program. We need a really thorough modernization and a modern look. And so going out, scoping well, getting a group who has a national look at who's doing the best of the best and getting the best outcomes to really set our course for the next 10 years for EMS. EMS is our growing industry. It always will be. And we need to do it well. We haven't looked at it for about 25 years, Chief Beckman has said. And so it really gives us an opportunity, and not only to kind of shuffle the cards, because we have chess pieces, I guess you'd say. We're not only going to be able to shuffle some of the chess pieces, more importantly, we're going to actually be able to invest because of the ongoing funding that we see and can now project with GEMT. So very exciting time. This is a moment that is going to be disruptive to how we look at things and an opportunity for us to make a difference for our community. So it's a very exciting moment. Got 2 other items. Just want to encourage you, if you do have questions, I guess there is a 30-second delay. Get those questions in there so that I could at least attempt to address them. Next item I wanted to hit on is the community planning. As you know, we've been engaged since April with Pierce County planning on what is known as the centers and corridors. It's a very interesting concept for the future of the fire district, but it's really forced us to address both our planning processes and then also fire code related issues that we're currently seeing in the community. We are challenged and we are challenging many of the status quos. I met with the builders and the realtors yesterday, and it was a little bumpy, to say the least, but Chief Carnes and I were both there, and we're committed to not back down or back away. And if someone's fairly abrupt or aggressive with us, to at least match that, to make sure that they understand that we're here to stay. So we're working on a capital facility plan, which is a great process longer term for us. Once it's established, it'll be a little rough first time out, but every year we will update it and revise it and actually submit it to the county for an update. That process of always taking time once a year to plan and to look at what our community needs are, what's changed, where are we going, is a very good process for us. And that will allow us to continue to plan for our future in a systematic way. So that's a good element. The second one is on the fire code issues, and the strategy that we're approaching is not a radical strategy. It's a fairly simple strategy that basically says if a fire starts in an occupancy, the building construction features needs to contain that fire to that occupancy until we can arrive at the emergency and get water on the fire and remove the energy. That is the whole point and strategy. Right now we don't have that with the PDD processes, where we're allowing setbacks that are less than 5 feet. Originally, remember the current community plan has 10-foot setbacks from property lines. The PDD process goes to 5 or less. And so we're trying to engage those issues along with the centers and corridors to again have a measured fire protection, so at least we can stop a fire to the building or the occupancy of a region. So more on that to come. A lot of work occurring, a lot of focus happening in those areas. The last item I wanted to hit was our strategic plan. We have completed the first annual review. As you'll recall, we did our strategic planning process. It was adopted in September of last year. One of the things that we built into it was that the company who facilitated the strategic plan would come back and review our progress and report that to our Board of Commissioners. That was done so that we would be accountable, that we would keep the right focus and energy on the strategic plan. So they came, ESCI, Chief Don Bivens came and facilitated a very good dialogue, a refresh of our strategic plan, looked at and listened to the different conditions. So that report is going to be available. We will post it on the strategic planning area for your review. It'll be delivered to the Board of Commissioners at our next meeting. I just wanted to hit some of the items that the strategic planning really committee has been doing and accomplished over the last year. And they're significant. The low acuity units comes from the strategic plan. Our CARES program, we have a CARES program manager that has been hired because of the strategic plan. Our actual engagement with Pierce County Planning, again, driven by our strategic plan for us to be more involved with development and community planning. Alternative funding sources, we're looking at various ways to attain revenue, whether it be things where we're successful or things that we fail. But we're attempting to find those areas. We're looking at grants. We're looking at, we tried to use the process on hazmat recovery costs for automobile accidents, which hasn't worked well. We're doing some tweaking of that. So there's a bunch of work that's occurring. The cultural survey and assessment, identifying, how are we doing? Where are we at as an organization? In fact, in the budget for 2020, we're actually looking at bringing in an organizational psychologist to help us. Okay, so we've identified a few things. Where do we go next? How do we move this culture forward together? So the strategic plan has been definitely a guiding and document that drives the organization, drives me, and will continue to through its accomplishment. So I'm very excited to say we're a little behind on a few things because of the lid lift, but we're getting caught right back up, and we will continue to drive to accomplish those elements in the strategic plan over the next 2 years. So those were the items that I wanted to discuss with you. I know there are many other things that are occurring. I know that Chief Stevie, Chief Carnes, and each one of the division chiefs probably talk about things that are much more practical and much more relevant to your day-to-day. I'm very thankful for the work that they do. I choose to try to keep my mind on the strategic and the very high tactical, because if we're not looking at the strategic, the tactical will never work. I'm thankful for them as they're giving you the practical things that you need, and I couldn't appreciate them enough for that. If there are any questions, I'm actually looking up to Wes Courtney, and there's no questions. So with that, I'll tell you again, thank you. Please pick up the company officers again. I really ask you to pick up those values. Grab one a shift and walk through them and talk, dialogue about what these things mean. Talk to each other about what do we want to do today to really reflect these values, that one in particular. I can't take all of them and go, I'm going to be that, right? I actually have to pick up one and say, okay, I'm going to focus on this. And what's interesting is that because they're really dealing with ethics, values, who we are, it's interesting the interconnectedness of all of them. So if you're working on one, you're probably going to have some sense of humility within all. You're going to have a sense of the need to be honest, to have integrity in all of them as you walk through them. So focusing on one really brings them together because they're a unity of purpose, and so that interconnectedness should really help. So again, thank you. Have a good day.